So let me see if I can find my Photoshop file. There it is. Valentine sketch. So this was your Photoshop file. Remember, we've saved it in multiple layers if you were doing the process sketch. So you probably had a layer for the black outlines, you had a layer for the colors, lights and shadows, those type of things. This is what I'm going to recommend that you do. I want you to merge all of the layers except for the background layer. Everything that had the drawing on it is going to be merged into one layer. Here's how you can do that. Select, first of all, one of the top layers, the very most top one, hold down the Shift key, and then click on the bottom layer. You can see all of these are now highlighted, all of them are selected. So Shift and click to add those on there. At the very top right-hand side of your layers palette, there's a drop-down menu, and one of the options, there it is to merge the layers. Notice that the keyboard shortcut is Command E. So now, once they're merged, you've only got two layers that you're working on, a drawing layer and a background layer. Once that's done, let's set up our document that we're actually going to make the card from. It's going to be a letter size, so I'm going to File and New. Of course, I need to type in, they've got a default, there's US paper, letters by default. Make sure you're working at 300 resolution, and our color mode is going to be CMYK since we're printing off. We'll say OK to that. So this is our document. Plain, white, nothing good will come of it. First thing I need you to do is to set up some guidelines to make sure everything you create stays within the page and doesn't print all the way to the edge of the margin. Here's how you can quickly and easily set up guidelines. You first of all need to be able to see your rulers. Right now I don't have my rulers at the top or the right hand edge, so to turn them on, go to View, and here's Rulers. Notice the keyboard shortcut is Command R. That's a simple, easy one to have. With the rulers turned on, now you've got the rulers ruled edge at the top and usually on the left-hand side of your page. If you want to make a ruled guideline, click anywhere on the ruler and drag down. And this will give you a line that it will follow, and I want to create half-inch margins. If you zoom in a little closer, you can see they'll give you a Y coordinate, so I'm going to put it right at 0.5. Or close enough to 0.5. It's only off by 0.04 of an inch, so that would be close enough. So half an inch, let's drag one down to the bottom. So 10.5. And also half inch on each side. All I'm doing is clicking on the ruler and dragging. Click and drag, 8 inches there. So, half inches on each side. Since we're going to be folding this one in half, I need to find my halfway mark along the page. So what's half of 11? 5.5. Good. Somebody is awake this morning. Here's another kind of pet peeve that I see. I would call it an amateur mistake, but I make this mistake often too. So we're going to fold this piece of paper in half from a normal size. Keep in mind you've got a half-inch border going around the entire edge. What most people like to do is they'll find the middle portion of it, and then they'll just scale up their work to fit inside that lower half of it. And they forget they need to have a half-inch margin from the middle edge of it as well. So keep this in mind. If you want your borders to be consistent, you also have to have a margin from the inside edges to work on. So let's create a margin from the inside edge. Click and drag down. This one will be right at half an inch as well. So this bottom edge is what we're going to be working in. You've got a margin going around the entire side. Let's go jump back to our painting that we created. Now for my design, what I wanted to do, the reason why I merged all the other layers together but I kept the background layer separate, is because I want the background of this painting to also be the background in my card. So I'm going to choose the background layer. Got my move tool. All I got to do is click and drag it over. Oops, excuse me, I'm sorry. Now the background layer is locked, so I won't be able to click and drag the layer. But here's how you can get around that. Click on the layer itself in here, drag it over, and it'll automatically be added to this layer as well. Pretty cool? So if you can't click on the actual layer in the window, click on it in the layers palette and it'll work out. Since I do have my move tool, I've also got my option to show the transform controls selected, so all I've got to do is just resize it to fit the area that I want to work on. Right in here. Hit return to enter it in. All I got to do now, drag over copy of my painting, and I can position it anywhere that I want to position it in here. I'm going to leave the design for your card up to you, however you want to design it. If you want to rotate it, place it in the center, place it off to the side, whatever works best for you. For mine, I chose to do a Bible verse for mine, so this is just how I set mine up. The only thing I want to have on the front of this card is it's got to have the painting that you created, and it needs to have some sort of text. Don't add any other clip art, don't add any other things, just keep it simple to the text and whatever you've created with the painting itself. I've grouped everything that I want to be on the front of the card into one group of folders. So here's the front of my card, I even called that group front. You can click on it. Notice that I've got a bunch of text layers. Here's all my drawing layers that I grouped together. What do you see next to this text layer? Yep, I've got a font error. I've got a little problem here. I created this on my computer at home, and remember my home computer's got different fonts than I have here at school. So when I opened up this Photoshop document, it gave me an error and it said, hey, I'm going to have to substitute fonts. What do you want to do? Photoshop does one interesting thing that Illustrator doesn't do. When you open up a file in Illustrator and you didn't have those fonts, it automatically substituted for whatever font that it had native on that computer. And so your design probably looked very different. In Photoshop, even though it doesn't have this font, it's still going to render just its version of that font for me. I can still preview it, I can still print it off. It's actually going to print off really well. Now if I was to choose my text tool and start clicking on it and highlight it, I get this error, the following text is missing. It's going to replace it with this font. And if I try to edit it, then it's going to change it up that way. But I don't want to edit it, I don't care, so I just hit escape and we're going to keep it the way it is that way. So keep that in mind. If you want to be able to edit the text, you got to save your fonts with your file. Save it in another folder so you can drag it into the fonts folder on whatever document. But if you're not going to edit it, don't worry, Photoshop will still render your font perfectly okay. Any questions about that? Alright. Other thing I did was, for my back design, I've got it on a separate layer in a separate group, so I can turn off the front, I can turn on my back, and this is the design that I did for the back. I want you to find either a Valentine's Day related quote, I did a Bible verse, you can do whatever you want to say, as long as it's text, don't add any other clip art. I want it to be a good text design. Now for this one, you don't have to do it the way I did it. I just did where you know the multiple sizes or multiple fonts, everything's kind of spread around, and it creates a font type of design with it. I'm going to leave it up to you how you want to do it. You can make it much more simple, but I'm going to leave that up to you. But I've got this one saved as its own design for itself, in its own layer, in its own group. Any questions about how to set this up? Here's why I grouped them both together. We're going to save these as files that you can open up in InDesign. So all I have to do is I want to save the same file and just be able to swap between the two layers to save the file without having to open up multiple different files to work with. So I've got my front design opened up. We're going to save this as a TIFF file. TIFF is the preferred file format for printing because it's lossless. If you save something as a JPEG, it's going to start compressing it, and you're going to lose a lot of information. And over time, it'll actually become more and more corrupted. You won't be able to open it. Usually takes a long time, but JPEG is not preferred. TIFF is a lossless type of file format that you can work from. So I'm going to choose Format and TIFF. I'm going to call it something like Card Layout Front. Hit Save. It's going to ask me for some TIFF options. For now, I'm just going to say OK. And one thing that TIFF will allow you to do is save files in multiple layers. A JPEG won't allow you to do that, so there's another good plus for using a TIFF file. I'll say OK. And I've got the front layer selected. Now, all I have to do is turn on the back design by clicking on the little eyeball icons. So I can see both of them. Oh, where'd it go? There we go. Turn on my background. Now I can go to File. Be sure to choose Save As, because remember we saved it as the front. I need to save this as the back design. So Save As. TIFF is already chosen. All I'm going to do is change the name to Back. We'll hit Save and OK for that one. Everybody follow what I just did? I've saved 2 files from the single file format. I can even close this out and work with it. I saved it to the desktop. At least I thought I saved it to the desktop. Uh-oh. Went to downloads? Thank you for noticing that. Downloads, there it is. So there's my back design, there's my front design. 2 icons that I can work with from there. Let's jump into InDesign. Why are you jumping at me? Failed to export. It's okay. Alright, so InDesign, we're going to make a new document. Remember, we're working in letter size. And yeah, we're going to keep everything else okay. For this one, all you got to do is load up, grab your rectangle frame tool, make it the size of your page, and drop in. In this case, I'm going to do the front. And we'll hit open. So there's my front design. See, it stays nice and well within the margins. Make a new page. Let's back it up so we can see both of them. Make another picture frame and drop in, this time, the back design. And we'll say OK to that. So both TIFFs are now loaded into this design. We're ready to print. Here's where I want you to really write down notes. I even gave you plenty of space on your handout. How to print double-sided in InDesign. Did y'all get any handout notes that came in late? We'll go over this extra slow because I know somebody's going to have a printing problem. I'm going to have to come over here and help you. Here's how to print double-sided using InDesign. And this is pretty much the same in most printing setups that I've seen, no matter where you work. First, you can always go to File and Print. Make sure the phaser is selected, since we're printing in color. Also, you may want to go to Page Setup and make sure that US letter is your paper size. Because if it's still set to 11 by 17, you'll need to change it to US letter. And that's okay. Here's the fun part. Choose Printer down here at the bottom. This will bring up the printer's settings. And the most important thing is this option down at the very bottom right-hand side, sort of middle bottom, for two-sided printing. Right now it's set to off. So if I was to print it, it would only print this 2 pages on 2 separate pages. When you click on off, you've got 2 different options to choose from. Long edge binding and short edge binding. What do y'all think that means? Long edge and short edge. Bingo. When you print something on the printer, there's 2 different ways you can flip a sheet of paper. Hold that up again. If it runs through a printer, you can flip a piece of paper along the short edge this way, or along the long edge this way. Now, that seems very, very simple, but you're going to get some dramatic results if you do it the wrong way. Let me show you what I mean. When I came in, I printed off 2 different versions, one long edge and one short edge. So if I gave, let's see, I'll give Hannah this one. If I presented you the card and she opened up the card, what does it look like? Reads normal? Reads good. If I gave you this card and you opened it up, what's wrong with it? No. Try it again. Tell you what. You're holding it this way. I want you to open it straight up. It's upside down. Depending on which one you choose, you got to choose the right one to make sure it flips the right way. The one I want you to choose for the way I have it set up is short edge binding. Here's why we chose short edge binding. See if I can, it's not going to show me. Now remember, I can't move this out of the way. We had the front design at the very bottom of the page. Yeah, it won't allow me to select it. Well, maybe I could. At the bottom of the page. And our back design is looking normal. It needs to flip along the short edge in order to open up correctly. Now, if you create yours and you wanted to rotate this to the top where it'd be upside down, you would need to flip it along the long edge because it's flipped that way. Have I totally confused everybody for 8 o'clock in the morning? Main thing to remember, if you want to set it up and do it right, put your design in front of your design at the bottom of the page, and you'll choose short edge binding, and it'll work every time. Let's click print and see what happens. Gave me a paper jam once. Hopefully it won't happen this time. We'll hit print. May give you an error saying we're out of toner, out of ink. Don't believe it. Xerox is a lie in itself, so it may take a little while once it prints on. Oh, and this is really cool. Watch, it'll come out, and it'll feed it back in, flip it over, and come out again. Sometimes early on cold mornings, the last place I work comes out, stops, goes back in. I just think that's really cool. Simple things in life. Where last place I worked, the print shop was really, really cold, so I would go in the morning and print off stuff, and the paper would be really warm. You just sit there and hold the paper in your warming hands. Okay. All right, this is me. So, here's our print. Looks good on this side. If I fold it, I can even test it. And there's the top of it that way. It works every time. When you print it, remember I've got thick paper in here, so you're going to be printing off on good cardstock. I don't have a lot, so try to make sure your design is perfect the way you want it before you print. I want to misprint that way as well. When you fold it, don't just fold it with your hands. Remember in Design 1 you learned how to use a bone folder, or you learned how to fold something properly, hopefully you all did? They've changed everything. Okay. Let me show you all how to properly fold a card. If you folded something just with your hand, and you started creasing along the edge with your fingers, it's going to give you a kind of a ragged edge. You can never fold something perfectly with just your hand. Instead, we've got one of these. This is called a bone folder. Unless you're in the state penitentiary, this is a shiv. So, grab a ruler and find the center portion of this one. Y'all come gather around. So, let's see. Right at 5.5, just a little tip, that's all you need. I get tipped off just a little bit. Right at 5.5 right there. Now I'm going to make the score of this one on the inside edge. In other words, I'm not going to run my bone folder on the outside. I'm going to do this on the inside. So let's line up my ruler. Place that along that edge. Just light pressure, press down, and run through. It seems very, very simple, but what you have is a score along your page. It makes it a whole lot easier now to fold this in half, and it gives you a good, clean edge whenever you fold it. It just folds right into place. You can take your bone folder, press it down. Looks a lot better that way. Feel how professional that edge feels. Came from a card shop. Yeah, Justin approves. I want to approve all the time. Yeah, probably the same. Same thing, double edge to it. Yeah. They do have folding machines, but we don't have one in here. You're all right.
And folding machines even, I'll just like to say, it's better to have it scored before it's folded, even in the folding machines. And a lot of folding machines won't fold, it'll break it all up.
Yeah, but sometimes those folding, they're going like 90 miles an hour. It's going very fast. That's one number. Okay. I do have some envelopes, so when you do turn this in, grab an envelope, place it in the envelope, and get it.
Isn't that sweet?
I'll return it to you so you can get it to wherever you want to.
You're just one
I want to feel
Valentine's
loved.
Day cards.
Yeah. I want y'all to give this to someone, so I'll give this back to y'all by next class period. You can turn it in about today. Okay? That's all we're going to be doing for today. Any questions about the project?
No exercises.
No exercises today?
Oh.
No, I can give you some exercises too. I can load you up.
Started getting
Crack open your book.
I should. I think I just said the thing.
Okay.
Oh. Probably about 15 hours. Really? Yeah. I got another question.
Uh-huh.
When we made those